The smell of roasted garlic means a delicious dinner is in store, and even better, that garlic came from your own garden. If you'd like to learn how to grow your own garlic in your backyard garden, or even in containers, you're in luck, because today we're talking about planting garlic in the fall and how you can get started. Let's dig in. Welcome to Homegrown, your backyard garden podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Rogers, and together we'll explore growing a successful vegetable garden no matter where you live. Today we're talking about garlic, which is planted in the fall. We'll discuss some different types of garlic, which kind you should grow, and how to plant it. Garlic is a well-known member of the onion family, and we all know how delicious it is, right? Garlic is wonderful. It turns an ordinary dish into something extraordinary, and it has all sorts of health benefits too, and you should grow some. The thing is, garlic is planted in the fall. That means you can plant something right now and grow food over the winter. Not much else grows over the winter without a lot of help, depending of course on where you live. So the fact that I can plant garlic in the fall and just let it do its thing all winter long makes me feel pretty powerful. Maybe even like a superhero. You see, garlic needs a cold treatment to encourage the plant to form that big garlic bulb. Garlic grows as a bunch of cloves, each surrounded by a layer or two of papery skin. That bunch of cloves is called a bulb. We plant the individual cloves, and when garlic is ready to harvest, we have an entire bulb of garlic. One bulb per plant, but since we planted one clove in the fall and now we have an entire bulb, we've doubled or tripled or maybe even quadrupled our harvest, maybe even more. That's a pretty good return for a crop that doesn't really need much from us. Winter is the cold treatment that helps the plant to form that garlic bulb. You could put your garlic in the refrigerator before planting instead, especially if you live in a place that's warm all year round. Or you can plant it in the fall and let nature provide the perfect cold treatment without any extra work on your part, and that's my kind of gardening. Planting in the fall also provides a longer growing season, so you'll get those larger garlic bulbs. What I really love about planting garlic in the fall is that there isn't a lot going on in my garden at the time. There aren't 100 other tasks to be done, and I'm growing something over the winter, when very little else grows. Your homegrown garlic should be ready to harvest in midsummer or so, depending on your climate, so be aware that it will still need that room in your garden well into the summer. When you're planning your garden and where to plant things, remember that space is already taken. But since garlic grows so well alongside so many vegetables, in the spring you can plant another crop right in among the garlic if you plan things right. Garlic helps to deter many insect pests, so it can be a win-win situation, both space-saving and pest-repelling. Garlic can suffer from aphids, so planting some pest-repelling flowers such as nasturtiums with your garlic could be beneficial too. While garlic gets along with almost everything in the garden, you don't want to plant it with peas, beans, melons, or asparagus. I've planted garlic in a new strawberry bed with great success. The strawberry plants were small, baby plants that came from runners that I transplanted to a new bed, and I added rows of garlic in between the rows of the new strawberry plants. By the time I harvested the garlic, I'd already had a crop of strawberries, and the plants were putting out runners and babies of their own, which quickly filled in the space left by the garlic. Lettuce is another vegetable that would be a good companion for garlic. In the spring, when the garlic begins sending its leaves up through the soil, you'd plant lettuce seed in between the rows. Lettuce plants have a small root system, so they wouldn't crowd the garlic. When summer's heat arrives and the lettuce gives up and goes to seed, you can pull up the lettuce plants just as the garlic needs more space to form the bulbs. Now here's what garlic needs to grow. Full sun exposure and well-draining soil. Very well-draining soil. If your soil is dense and heavy, you could add some sand or vermiculite to the soil and work it in well to help with drainage. And of course, it never hurts to add compost or well-rotted manure to improve the texture of your soil too. You just can't add too much organic material to your soil. But wait, you don't have a garden yet? You can even plant garlic in pots or planters. Garlic plants don't need deep soil. They're pretty shallow rooted, but they do want that well-draining soil, so make sure your pot or planter has drainage holes. You could even plant a few garlic cloves in a flower bed. And garlic grows well in raised bed gardens because they drain so well. Each clove of garlic that you plant will form a bulb made of several cloves. Depending on the variety of garlic, the average size of harvested bulbs is about 4 to 7 cloves. That will help you figure out how many cloves you need to plant so you can harvest as much garlic as you need. Your harvest should be triple or quadruple what you planted, maybe even more. Of course, this always depends on the weather, rainfall, and so on that year. You'll also want to save some of your harvest to plant again in the fall. There are 2 kinds of garlic, hardneck and softneck types. Hardneck garlic has a stiff stalk that grows up the middle of the bulb, surrounded by the cloves, while softneck has a thinner, more flexible neck that forms the plant's leaves instead of a stem. Which one is best to grow in your backyard? Well, it depends. Doesn't it seem like just about everything about gardening depends? It depends on where you live and your goal for what you want to do with your garlic. If you're a garlic connoisseur, I'm probably mispronouncing that, which shows you that I'm not one, you'll probably want to grow a hardneck variety that is known for its unique flavor profile. Hardneck garlic boasts deep, rich flavor, depending on the variety. Hardneck garlic is more cold-hardy and can withstand harsh winter temperatures, while softneck varieties prefer milder winters. But on the other hand, softneck garlic has a longer storage life. Softneck garlic is easier to braid into those decorative ropes that are hanging in your Italian friend's kitchen. So if you live in the far north, hardneck is the better choice because it's cold-hardy. If you live in the desert southwest, softneck garlic might grow better for you. If you're somewhere in the middle, you can probably grow either one, or even both if you want. You might have heard of elephant garlic, and you're wondering whether it's a hardneck or a softneck variety. But elephant garlic is actually more closely related to leeks than to garlic. You grow it the same way, though, and you also plant it in the fall, the same way that you plant regular garlic. Just like its name implies, elephant garlic grows very large cloves. It's milder and sweeter than true garlic varieties. I'm often asked if you can plant garlic from the grocery store, and yes, you can. You plant it in the same way as garlic that you've bought for planting, or the cloves that you saved from the garlic you grew last year. Store-bought garlic is usually a softneck variety because of its long shelf life. Sometimes grocery store garlic is treated with a chemical to prevent sprouting. If you bought store-bought garlic and absolutely nothing happens, well, that's probably why. Do be aware that grocery store garlic might harbor diseases, viruses, and parasites called nematodes that could impact your soil health. If you can find garlic at your local farmer's market, that might be a better choice. So where else can you buy seed garlic other than the grocery store? Many online seed companies sell garlic for planting, which is called seed garlic, even though it isn't a seed. You buy seed garlic by the bulb, and each bulb will have several cloves that you can plant. Next year you won't have to buy seed garlic because you'll save some cloves from your first harvest this year to plant the following fall. Garlic needs to be planted about 2 weeks before the first frost of the season, and definitely before the ground is frozen. That's the ideal timing anyway. It's hard to predict that first frost, so don't think that just because you had an unexpected frost this morning that it's too late to plant your garlic. It's not. As long as you can dig in the dirt, as long as the ground isn't frozen, you can still plant garlic. But you also don't want to plant it too early, because you don't want the leaves to grow, and then you get hit with winter weather. On the other hand, that happens to a lot of gardeners too. Garlic is pretty resilient, so if you've already planted it, and you can already see green leaves growing, don't panic. It'll probably be okay. Garlic grows its roots over the winter, and in the spring when the weather warms up a bit, the leaves begin to grow. So, now you've chosen what kind of garlic to plant, and where you're going to plant it, in pots or containers, or planters or a flower bed, or in your garden. Here's how to plant it. Prepare your soil by adding compost and perhaps some sand or vermiculite if you think you need it. Add a bit of bone meal to the planting holes to help your cloves grow healthy roots. Divide your garlic bulb into cloves. Keep the smallest cloves for eating, and then plant the rest. Some gardeners soak their garlic cloves before planting, although I haven't done this before. First, they soak their garlic bulbs in alcohol, either rubbing alcohol or even in cheap vodka, for about 20 minutes to sterilize the garlic cloves. This is to prevent garlic from bringing diseases into your garden. Next, they soak their garlic in liquid fertilizer such as diluted fish emulsion. Mix it in a bucket and let your garlic soak overnight. Now we're ready to plant the cloves in the prepared soil, about 1 inch or 2 deep and 4 to 6 inches apart. Plant the cloves with the pointed end up and the blunt rounded end down. Garlic isn't very good about righting itself if it's planted upside down, but it's really quite easy to tell the difference between the top and the bottom. Just remember, garlic points its way to the sky and plant it with that pointed end up. If you're planting in pots, plant the cloves 2 to 3 inches from the edge of the pot and allow 4 inches between the cloves. Plant in a circle around the pot with cloves in the middle of the pot too if there's enough room. After you've planted your garlic, whether it's in the garden or in pots, cover the cloves with soil and pat it down gently. Then cover with several inches of mulch. Straw and fallen leaves are great mulch material. Be generous and use a layer that's about 3 to 6 inches deep. Because I live in a place with almost constant wind, I place a piece of wire fencing on top to help hold it down. I learned that lesson the hard way. And finally, water your planted garlic very well. Did you notice that it took longer for me to tell you how to plant garlic than it will take for you to actually plant it? Really, planting garlic is quite simple and easy. If rain is scarce over the winter in your garden, you may have to water your garlic occasionally, so keep an eye on the soil underneath that mulch. On the other hand, if you have snow cover in the winter, you may not have to water again until spring. Mulch helps hold moisture in the soil, but it also needs to be fluffy enough to allow moisture from the rain or snow to get through to the ground. So use something that will stay kind of fluffy and not mat down into a solid layer that won't let the water through, or that won't let the leaves through in the spring. Leaves and shredded paper are famous for matting up like this, but you can chop up those fallen leaves with the lawnmower before adding them to the garlic bed. Just spread them out, run the lawnmower over them, and rake it all back up and on top of the bed. A good thick layer of mulch will help suppress weeds in the spring, too. There are so many garden chores that have to be done in the spring. Not having to weed is a real blessing. Then when spring arrives and the weather warms up, your garlic will begin sending leaves up through the mulch towards the sun, and in a few months you'll be ready to harvest your own homegrown garlic. In the meantime, I hope you'll subscribe to this podcast so you won't miss a single episode. Share with your friends, too. Leaving a review would be awesome. As always, you'll find the link to the transcript of this episode in the show notes. I'd love to keep in touch with you, too. You'll find me on my blog, oakhillhomestead.com, on Facebook at Oak Hill Homestead, and on Instagram at Oak Hill Homestead. I'll put the links in the show notes, too. Thank you for tuning in today, and I'll see you here next time on Homegrown, your backyard garden podcast.